Call the Tuesday, May 15th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag, States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Rice, would you please?
Gracious Heavenly Father, come to you in prayer. Freely, be there with
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Leitner? Here. Commissioner Walls? Here. Commissioner Rice? Here. Commissioner Duckham? Here. Commissioner Tompkins? Here. Commissioner Mahoney?
Present.
Commissioner Williams?
Present.
Commissioner Elwell?
Here.
Chairman Shotwell?
Here.
All present.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion and support. Any additions or deletions? Hearing none at this time. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Duly carried. We have no awards and recognition to come before the board this evening. Are there any communications or petitions? If there are, please hand them to the clerk. Seeing none, we have no special orders or public hearings at this time. At this time, we'll entertain the first round of public comment. Each individual will state their name, have 3 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board once under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate nor answer any questions at this time. Public comment is now open.
Good evening, Board. Julie Alexander, Hanover Township. Very good to see all of you. What I respect most about you is the deliberative process you always take. And being fiscally conservative, valuing the taxpayers' dollars. As you consider and contemplate the proposal on the fairgrounds property, I ask that you take those two pieces into consideration, but also the opportunities and the innovativeness being presented to you. Thank you.
I'm Jay Gutshaw. I'm the manager in the village of Brooklyn, and I wish to speak to the addressing ordinance proposal that's on your agenda tonight anyway. Our village council met on March 12th and had representatives from the GIS center as well as the 911 call center at our meeting. At that time, there was some discussion about the proposed addressing changes that hadn't come to this point yet, but prior to that, I had received a list of approximately 116 addresses in the village of Brooklyn from Scott Ames, and I've reviewed all of those addresses, and with few exceptions, I don't see a need to make any changes. I don't see how they relate at all to public safety or mail delivery or any other of the reasons that were given in the ordinance for having this ordinance in the first place. However, I did make myself available to Mr. Ames to meet at any time to go over those addresses one by one and discuss those, and offered to bring any that might be worth discussing with our village council to consider on an individual basis. 2 months have gone by, I've not heard a word from Mr. Ames on that. So I don't think that the present ordinance is being applied the way it was intended in the first place. I don't see that there is any advantage in what I understand being proposed. I will say this, that addresses in the village of Brooklyn, many of them have existed since its beginning in 1832. With very few exceptions, addresses in the village are 3-digit addresses. Some of the proposals that are being made are to change that. Other proposals, I understand, maybe even changing street names, which have existed since the village's beginning in 1832. So I just want to let you know that I don't think that the current ordinance is being applied the way it was intended in the first place. I don't see a need to make changes that may remove the decision-making process from the village council. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jay Bidget. I am the president of the Village of Brooklyn. I'm here to address the GIS street naming ordinance. The Village of Brooklyn is against the County of Jackson renaming any street or address of any property within the Village of Brooklyn without the approval of the village. This has again come to the forefront after a fire that occurred in the village on February 27, 2018 on Case Road. When the fire was discovered by the homeowner, 911 was contacted at least 13 times from the onset. At least 13 times. From the onset of the homeowner stated that they were in Columbia Township and not Norval Township because there had been problems in the past. 911 still sent the fire department to Norval. This is simply because the 911 operators failed to listen time and again. The 911 operators were told that Village of Brooklyn, Columbia Township, and then they were even told that they were across from the old Ford plant on at least one occasion. The operator would interrupt the caller, and one could even interpret that the operator was rude. It was not until after at least a half dozen calls from the homeowner that 911 discovered the mistake and redirected the fire department. And even after this discovery, 911 still subsequently sent an ambulance out to the Norval address. In my opinion, as well as the opinion of others that I've spoken with, the only reason for this substandard service is either gross negligence or an intentional action. Jackson County taxpayers have offered a princely sum for the 911 system, including its upgrades. 911 had at the time, as you do now, to utilize what is called House Watch, in which 911 could have marked this address a known concern, but has failed to do so. Even the FOIA requested from the Brooklyn exponent was not entirely forthcoming at first call. I am convinced that if there are no computers involved at 911 at the time of this fire, and only paper and pen, the situation would not have occurred because the operator would actually have had to have listened to the caller. It is a stressful job, is no excuse. The Village of Brooklyn has enjoyed a positive working relationship with the county in the past, and it is our intention to continue. The Village of Brooklyn has historically listened to any and all parties with respect to all ideas to create a safer and healthier place to live, work, and play, and we will continue with this tradition. But by simply forcing the citizens of the Village of Brooklyn to change their addresses and street names will not accomplish this. Any changes to be made will be done by the consent of the Council of the Village of Brooklyn. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Fred Lucas. I'm the attorney for the Village of Brooklyn. Just want to bring the attention to the commission a couple of matters relative to the street naming ordinance that I think is relevant to your consideration. One of the first issues that I have relative to this ordinance is with respect to the authorization and the legality of the imposition of this upon the municipalities. As I read the ordinance as presented to me, the authority and the basis for the County Board of Commissioners' authority for this is Section 40, Chapter 46, Section 4611J of the Michigan compiled laws. That is stated in the language of the ordinance itself, that is the basis for the county's authority. And I would point out that Section J provides that a majority vote of the members of the County Board of Commissioners may pass ordinances that relate to county affairs which do not contravene the general law of the state or interfere with the local affairs of a township, city, or village within the limits of the county. It is our position that this ordinance, if adopted by the county, would interfere with the local affairs of the Village of Brooklyn and with all other communities within the county. Secondly, I would like to point out that one of the stated purposes of this ordinance is to provide uniformity for all addresses within the county. The problem is that this ordinance does not provide uniformity for all addresses, because by its very terms, the city of Jackson is exempted from this. And even though the stated purpose is to provide uniformity, how can you do so when the largest entity within the county is exempt from application and from following these provisions? So to me, the stated goal of uniformity is not being reached, but is being undercut by that exemption. The final thing I would point out, and it's a thing I think that you as county commissioners would be very sensitive to, is the fact that this forms what is known as what I would call an unfunded mandate. If you go through and change the street names and require a change to the street names and street addresses, there will be a financial component to this.
15 seconds?
Pardon?
15 seconds.
Okay. A financial component that is going to have to be borne by either the municipalities involved or the homeowners themselves. Thank you.
Peter Bournemouth. I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Mahoney and Commissioner Williams for the summer job program. And I know Daniel mentioned that to me when he first was elected, and it's nice to see it materialize. And that's certainly something both of you can take back to your constituents as an accomplishment. And I just want to say I'm looking forward very much to the fair presentation. I have stayed completely out of it. I have not bothered them once, and I'll be looking forward to see what the proposal entails.
Down into the agenda to talk about it.
Good evening, Del Anto. You know, this Board of Commissioners has turned this Steve Rand situation into a farce. You are making the whole county nothing but a farce. It's a witch hunt, you know it is, and you continue going on. You know, if you would just let this thing die, it would take care of its own self. But no, you won't do that. You got to play these childish games of taking the man's car away from him that he's entitled to under his job, as you approved the car and the purchase of the car, and yet you want to continue crucifying the man when he hasn't even had his day in court. We've got people sitting on this board right here that call themselves constitutionalists, and yet they don't think a man is innocent until proven guilty. You know, there's very few of you sitting here that hasn't used worse language than what Steve Rand did in public, let alone behind doors. And Mr. Mahoney right there, right here sitting at a commissioners meeting, has the gall to call people out in the audience bigots and racists. And the only reason he does that is because he's a racist. He's got to use the race card any place, anytime he can. Let this thing drop. It will take care of itself. Instead of this political witch hunt because somebody else wants his job.
My name is J.C., and I too am here to talk about the sheriff. I just put billboards, signs at each end of the city. Racist free, bigot free. Everybody sitting here is clean and saintly. Mr. Rice should take some of the prayer that he said and use that tonight, you know? Forgive and forget, like you were saying. I see no foot, no boot on your neck, buddy, at all. That was used over at the city council anyway. That was an old saying you had. So you guys, seriously, you want business to come here and people look at you guys and they think, yeah, there ain't no way. Ain't no way. You guys just want to throw everybody under the bus except anybody sitting on here that really deserves to be under the bus. So do the right thing. All you guys do the right thing. Give up all your money, give up your insurances, give up whatever you get for being on this board of vindictiveness, and go away and let new people come in. Maybe they'll be a little bit better and look at things differently. I've seen no protest in front of the sheriff's office, madly running around with signs asking for him to be headed. None of that's been taking place. The LBGT forced you people into a situation and then you all started running for the hills. I'm telling you, it's just really disgusting is what you people are to keep on with this. I personally wished that he would have a vendetta against a few of you. Maybe spend a few nights at his hotel for something you've done and should be instead of getting off. We all know who that is. Everybody does. So, again, I ought to say, you guys really need to clean your own outhouses before you do somebody else's. And taking his stuff away, that just shows you how much childishness there is up here. You try everything. You went to the Republican Party and tried to get something done by them, and they just basically turned their back on you guys. Until you have the people up there marching and stuff, I think Steve does a good job. And, you know, I imagine this is probably going on for a while, and he's led those people all this time. But, yeah, you seem to think that now he
30
can't.
seconds?
How much?
27 now.
27? Can I, 25? 20? I'll lend it for you right here.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Go ahead.
Mike Raskowski, Henrietta. I'm going to take a little different tact on this whole Rand deal. I hope you guys just take gals, just take a step back. I've said from the beginning, I don't think anybody condones his words and what have you. But I think you guys are piling on and what have you. And I can't help but think a couple things. Number one, what do you do if you're falsely accused? I know he admitted to what he said, but in what context? And yes, I was at the Republican monthly meeting, and I did learn some things, and I talked to Mr. Shotwell, and he's exactly right. I don't know all the information, as does Mr. Duckham, you're right. You're absolutely right. And he said this is a due process. Okay, well, maybe. I might debate that. But okay, that's what you think you do. But I think it's a little bit of piling on. I would ask yourself a few questions. Number one, Mr. Shi, does he have any vested interest? Will you take at least 10, 20% of the vigor that you took? And my understanding is, Mr. Overton, that he came into your office and basically blackmailed you, and I think I have some state reports on that from the state troopers. Now, if he's in there blackmailing you, basically blackmailing the county, saying if you don't give me more on my pension and benefits, there go, I have these tapes, what kind of Pandora's box have you opened for other people? That's a consideration that you must have. You also must consider this. It is a duly elected. Yes, he is also kind of two hats. But as an elected official, there is a process. They're doing it down in Leone right now. It's a recall. See, my numbers read this. There's about 20 elected officials. Okay, all unanimous save one. That'd be Mr. Pappen on the city council. You also got probably another 40 that I would say various organizations that have condemned him in his thing and want his resignation. Okay. They said there was 135 that were at the King Center. Okay. They said according to WKHM, majority of them, so I'll give you 100 of them. They only get you up to about 140, I'll give you another 60. That gives you about 200 loudmouths out there. Now my understanding is, in the low end, it's about 13,000 signatures that you need. If these people, and if there is such an uprising, and such a terrible thing going on, it seems like they should be energized to go out and get a few signatures.
Mike, 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. And with that in mind, that's the avenue of which you go to. Be real careful what you wish for, because it can be used in very bad ways. Like I said before, it just goes up to the governors. And on any elected official, and you got a bad governor and just want to get rid of one party or another, that could happen. So with that in mind, just consider what you're doing in the long term, and you could be liable too.
Time's up, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. We'll now have a special meeting of agencies and affairs on the recycling program for the cement silo, chaired by Commissioner Elwell. Commissioner Elwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll stay in our seats. Chris can give us the presentation. This was an issue that Chris had received just about the time of our standing committee. I heard about it during the committee and asked that he hold it over till here, and we'd have a special meeting now. So, Chris, the floor is yours for a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. As you may recall, the road recycling program included two large machines to recycle our roads. The one is the 3800 that moves along in a train, and that's mostly for straightaway roads. The KMA, as pictured in the staff report, is a stationary plant that is mobile, can move around. We set that up. That's a secondary option for subdivisions and curvy roads and so forth. We have learned recently in our training and through further vetting, and there's a brand new report out that shows that one of the two processes we can use, one is emulsion, the other is a foamed asphalt, where we take pure asphaltic bitumen, which is used to make blacktop, HMA. And when injected into either of these machines and a small percentage of cement, Portland cement, is added, it makes a superior mix. In fact, it's on par with the strength of asphalt. The other piece of good news is it saves about $10,000 to $14,000 per mile of road over the emulsion method. So we are very intrigued by that increased durability and quality in combination with the savings. So this silo here would store bulk Portland cement powder to inject into the mobile mixing plant, and it will pay for itself after only 3 to 5 miles of road are complete, if you factor in the savings on the foamed asphalt process. We're coming to you tonight rather than waiting for the June committee process, because it's a 6 to 8 week lead time, and at our training in Tennessee we finalized the actual configuration and the way that it connects with the plant. So I do apologize for the urgency, but we want to keep things moving if possible.
Chris, I've just got a couple of questions for you. First is, will adding the Portland cement to the product prohibit us from recycling that same asphalt later?
No, that's more for the clay stabilization, when you get into clay stabilizing. So this is a re-recyclable base the bound aggregate base when you add this, as long as it's only 1 to 1.5%.
And then bond funds proceeds will be used for this purchase, which we had planned for, correct?
Correct.
And lastly, there's a quote in with the documents, but I don't see actual bids. Is this the only equipment that we could have bought, or?
This is a sole source, but it is through the NJPA, which is the National Joint Powers Alliance. It's something the county's been a member of since 2011, so it is bid.
Like my deal.
It's like my deal, yes.
Very good. Committee members, any other questions of Chris? Phil?
Thank you. Chris, you say it's a new concept where we mix Portland cement powder in with asphalt.
It's actually been done, the foamed asphalt process is what's being perfected. It's more popular here in the last 10 to 15 years, whereas the emulsion has been over maybe a 30-year time frame. So the foamed asphalt, to put it simply, has come to a point of perfection where the strength is carefully measured now. Again, this new report is only 3 or 4 weeks old that shows that the strength is equal to HMA as a base.
That's what I'm concerned about, is we don't have history on the durability of the concrete. I know Boardman Road lasted something like 8 or 9 years. It was an experimental mix or something like that, and it failed us. How do we know this isn't going to fail us?
The addition of cement has been used all over the country, and Virginia is one of the more recent projects where they had a much larger silo with their plant when they did a project for the Virginia DOT. The project is 3, 4, 5 years old now and has outstanding durability as expected. And what the cement does is adds fines. It's the powder, the very fine Portland cement powder that facilitates the welds. It's called spot welding. When you inject the foamed asphalt at a hot temperature, it basically explodes inside the chamber and welds the granular material together. If you don't have the Portland cement fines, sometimes you get globules, and the quality of the base isn't what you need. So, in a nutshell, that's how it works.
And you're fairly confident of the article you read that this is going to be a benefit?
Absolutely.
Spend another $50,000 of the bond money?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
thank
am.
you.
Commissioners, John, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, at some point in time, we've made a lot of purchases, and always within mind of how that actually at the back end ends up saving us money, saves us, man hours, saving us time. I really like to take kind of that all the dollars that are being spent from the bond, and really kind of have that broken down into, kind of a one-pager in terms of what we're expending, what we're getting, and then how ultimately that positively affects the bottom line. Because on the one end, of course, you can see here's another $56,000. Here's another, but every time you come forward and say this is exactly how this is going to benefit us, this is how it's going to make the roads last longer, and it would be good to have that kind of one pager just for anybody who's of the mind to want to check into that.
Correct. We're actually working on that summary report for you. You'll have it either in June or July. And we have already saved enough with our past purchases to cover the cost of this entire equipment modernization bond fund that we set up 2.5 years ago. So it's been very, very effective and successful for us. And I'll get that documented for you.
Okay, if no other questions, we'd be looking for a motion to send it out to the full board. The amount is $52,310. There's support?
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried is sent to the full board. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approval of the minutes of the April 17th, 2018 meeting. I have a motion, and I have support. Any corrections, deletions, or additions? Seeing nor hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Duly carried. We've arrived at the consent agenda. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So move, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and support. I know there's items. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to remove?
I don't believe so. The item we just sent will appear under standing committee. It'll be item B,
Correct.
and there's nothing else for me to pull.
Thank you. Commissioner Duckham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to remove item 11A from the Personnel and Finance Committee for discussion.
That'll become item 15A for everyone who's following with the program. Any other items for removal? Seeing nor hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you post the vote, please? Thank you. Consent agenda passed unanimously. We're now at Standing Committee Affairs and Agencies chaired by Commissioner David Elwell. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two items. The first is the issue of the payment for Tyler Technologies. This was an issue that I did not support and committee voted no, but I'm going to make the motion for approval. Is it what the committee recommended I do, but I do have an amendment to it after that. So I so move that we approve the Tyler Technologies issue.
We have a motion and support. Commissioner Elwell.
I'd like to amend the motion to specifically make it clear that we're approving the payment for Tyler Technologies for 2018, but not for 2019. This was an issue that when I went to review my board packet on the weekend before standing committee, the issue itself was not there, didn't appear. I checked with Mike, and Mike confirmed that he wasn't able to see it either. And as I looked at the history of the issue on board docs, it appears it came to Mike on April 23rd and came to us, I think, on the 4th or 5th. And not included in the review of it was anyone from IT, and there's mention in the document itself, which is very well put together, but mentioned that maintaining the current product and database seems like the wisest investment for all public safety entities in Jackson County at this time. I had commented in committee that I think there's a benefit to this issue being talked about by police agencies or police chiefs, sheriff department, IT. Deb has experience with one of the potential providers, and most importantly, there's a large amount of money at stake here. I think we're talking about $262,000 if we dealt with both of them at once. Proving one, I think we're talking about $138,000. And there's another county south of us that is moving away from Tyler Technologies and moving to Clemis, which has made vast improvements through the years. And they're keeping a couple of elements of Tyler Technologies for dispatch and booking because Clemis does not have their program perfected yet. But to be clear, Clemis was born by Oakland County. It's a huge system now that is in use in most of southeast Michigan. I'm not saying we should go to that. I'm suggesting that we need to slow down, make sure we're doing our due diligence on the issue because there's a huge amount of money here at stake, and I don't necessarily agree that Tyler Technologies is the best one that we should be going with. So I, again, made the motion to approve just 2018's. Deb was good enough to put two other documents with board docs. One was the cost of the different elements of Tyler Technologies, as well as a credit memo for 2018, which is what got us from $180,000 down to the $138,000 for this year. So I'm hopeful that commissioners see the wisdom in slowing down the bus, approve it for this year. I agree with that, till we can study it more. The sheriff hopefully will study it more, and we can talk more before the end of the year about 2019, what's best moving forward.
We have an amendment to the motion. Do I have support from anyone? We have support.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
With only approving the 1 year, does that affect the potential for the 2019 contract? Does anybody know?
Sarah, I'll answer that if I can, Mr. Chair. And John asked the same question. So I'm appreciative of Deb including the other documents that she did. In all honesty, if you look at the agenda item at Affairs and Agencies, we were looking at only 2018, but the document itself that we had before says 18 and 19. There's a credit memo that's attached that Deb added, which it says New World Public Safety reduction, and it's for 2018. It's a reduction of $39,859. That's for 2018 by what I can see in the document.
So we're assuming that the 2019 fee is going to be the full amount because they haven't given us anything in writing, correct?
I'm I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear your
Well,
last.
I see that it says 2018, so what I'm saying is that right now we're going to assume that 2019 is just going to stay.
Point of clarification from Dave, Dave, I believe Mike's got an answer for Sarah.
Well, let me, if I can read this email that Deb just shared with me from the undersheriff. It says nothing for 2019 other than a verbal agreement that they issue the same billing summary with a credit to bring total cost to that to $125,000. That tells me clearly that they're separate. Agreed?
You keep nodding, would you mind? Thank you.
A couple quick things. One, to be clear, so everyone's clear, this is not anything new. This is not new software. This is just a continuation of the software we have used for a number of years. I do concur with Commissioner Elwell that we can just approve 18, and then next year we'll have to approve, it'll have to come back before the board for consideration for 19. I don't see there's any harm in that at all. Frankly, I am hopeful that the sheriff will take a hard look at this software, and if there's different technologies that we should be considering, that he would do so.
Okay, so the understanding is right now we're voting on the amendment. Is everyone comfortable with that? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Amendment passed.
Yes, unanimous.
The amendment passed unanimously. Now we're voting on the full motion. Passed unanimously.
No,
No? 8-1? Eight one, Commissioner Walls. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next is the issue brought forth from committee today, which is for authorizing the purchase of the Cement Tech portable cement silo from AIS Construction Equipment at a cost of $52,310. And it's so moved.
We have a motion and support. Any questions? Post the vote. Thank you. Motion carried. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have to report.
Standing Committee Report, Human Services, chaired by Commissioner Rice. Commissioner Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Human Services has no business to come before the board tonight.
Thank you. Standing Committee Personnel and Finance, chaired by Commissioner Duckham. Commissioner Duckham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item we have to discuss tonight is the addressing ordinance as rewritten. Shall I speak to that right now?
I'd like to have a motion on the floor first, if you could. If you're not willing to make the motion, is someone?
Support.
We have a motion and support. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know how long it's been. It's been a few years back, but I voted in support of the addressing ordinance. The county was given the task of addressing residents and naming new roads when Consumers Energy opted out. One of the main reasons I was supporting this ordinance was the villages and the townships could opt out if they so chose. As it happened, the village of Brooklyn and Napoleon Township both opted out. And that allowed our addressing ordinance to move forward. As the addressing ordinance is from time to time amended or updated, it's unbelievable that two local entities who entered into this addressing ordinance on the condition they were allowed to opt out it's unbelievable they could be overturned by a single update. The update is to, in my opinion, correct some flaws in the verbiage, allow some corrections that we have found out was needed as time passed on. I don't feel that a simple rewrite of the rules of the ordinance and the functionality of the ordinance should include opting out, being overturned. We told the local entities when we were presenting this ordinance that they would be allowed to opt out if they so chose. I feel like the opting out issue should be agreed upon by the local entities, or it should be grandfathered in. They entered into good faith with us on this ordinance. Should it be allowed to be taken away, it just doesn't seem fair. This wasn't the intent of allowing the opt-out ordinance in the first place, and it may result in a trust factor with the county and the local, other local units of government. I just don't feel opting out should have been taken out of the ordinance. It wasn't a factor in the health and safety of the citizens of our county, whether it be addressing issues or street issues. Thank you.
Commissioner Elwell?
Thank you. I'm going to be supporting the motion or voting for the motion tonight. I voted against it previously in committee, and it was sent back before it got to the full board for some changes. And my vote in support of it tonight will come with a couple of caveats. One, and I think it needs to be said that I don't think there's any municipality that's opposed to this ordinance being followed moving forward with new addresses. I think the greatest contention comes when you're talking about changing street names or changing addresses. I don't necessarily support that, and I think it needs to be publicly clarified that what we've done since we last looked at the ordinance in committee was change the language, giving more latitude to the committee for exceptions to having to change it, and we've also changed the makeup of the committee on who would be on it. So I will be supporting that, and if things get to the point again where I think changes that are unnecessary are being forced upon municipalities, I'll be back here asking our commissioners to change the ordinance again. And I lastly say that there were a lot of good comments made by the three representatives from the village tonight, and one of them is that we have to have our own house in order on this issue of safety at the same time that we're mandating others make changes. And I'm hopeful that changes that I've talked about before can happen again. A couple of them were talked about tonight by the speakers. So I'll be voting for it, but watching it closely and with those caveats. Thank you.
Commissioners? Commissioner Leitner, then Commissioner Rice.
To piggyback on Dave Elwell's comments in regards to the ordinance, I agree with him. Obviously, I sit on that currently, but I won't be going forward. But anyways, one of the other situations that we run into in my brief time on this committee was the appeals process. So that has went through the ringer a little bit too on who's sitting on that and how that process goes. So that's one of the other good things about this is it does allow for more flexibility, I think, in exemptions, but still having standards in place to make it a safe community.
Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be supporting this. I'd like to say, though, that what I did was, being that I've been appointed the Commissioner Liaison for the Supervisors Association, and I've been there many years, I actually sent an email out. Scott Ames, who's the head of the Street Naming Committee, is aware of this. I sent an email out giving them the information about the ordinance and the updates and changes. And the only feedback I got is I had two conversations with a couple supervisors. And I'll just put it in a nutshell. They both generally said it can be a pain in the, I'll let you figure out the rest. But they said from a public safety point, this needs to continue and needs to be done throughout Jackson County. They also agreed that local entities, such as the Village of Brooklyn, if they have concerns, should have a say-so in front of the committee prior to certain action being taken. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to build upon something that Mr. Lucas has said in his public comment, and that is the fact that the city opts out. So we've given local control to the city, but at the same time, we're not giving local control to the villages or to the townships. And I understand the idea of uniformity, and I understand the problems that we have with similar named streets, but it seems to me that the individuals who've been elected to those local municipalities should be cognizant exactly of what the impact is of their decision. And so for that reason, I'm going to be voting no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Would you please post the vote, Madam Clerk? No problem. Pass 7-2. Commissioner Duckham.
That's all tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Duckham. We're at unfinished business. Any unfinished business to come before the board? Seeing nor hearing none. New business. Fairgrounds Transformation Project presentation, William Deary. Madam, would you please give that to the clerk? Would you please hand that to the clerk?
Move to receive.
Receive and support. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Duly carried. Mr. Deary, you have the floor.
Commissioners, I want to thank you for allowing us to come and speak with you tonight. Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of large developmental projects that have involved many, many business leaders throughout Jackson County. Many of us believe that the greatest chance of success in these projects is by all of us working together. A number of us have met with the governor and with lots of the local elected officials to move projects forward. We've recruited other community leaders to join us in this vision, and in late March we convened a meeting of a lot of the different leaders throughout our community to talk about how we could move forward, work together, and bring some of these projects together in such a way that would help us to really do something remarkable in our community, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. We really are at a perfect moment in time. It's a very exciting time in Jackson. There's investment in residential opportunities, there's investment in hotels, there's investment in restaurants, and this resurgence is creating opportunity for all of us. We have the opportunity to realize right now government, private company, public company, philanthropy, and private investor cooperation, and that's what we'd like to present before you. Oh, there we go. Thanks. This opportunity is really a function of a confluence of independent events that have happened over time. And if you look at some of the things that are going on in Jackson right now, we have the exciting master plan that's been built for the fairground. We have American One in their event center. We have the opportunity to realize a sports complex here. The YMCA is talking about a new facility. Consumers Energy is presenting a smart energy district for downtown. There are private developments across downtown and throughout the community. And then finally, there's the Hayes Hotel, which is coming before us. And if you look at all of these projects, as we look at them, they present the opportunity for what we're defining as transformational change. These projects can impact not only us today, but generations to come. And so as we talk about that, we talk about a new vision of community, and what is this new vision and how can it occur? Really what we're looking at is projects that are gonna live on long beyond our time, long beyond our being here in Jackson. And what it presents is the opportunity for metamorphosis. And now, how does that all come about? Well, the idea is synergy. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's through collaboration and cooperation where we're all working together to really create in Jackson a new next generation destination location. And the whole idea is to take each of these projects and instead of 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, figuring out a way to make 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. And each of the different projects has its own individual series of goals. Together, there's an opportunity to strive to realize a greater good. And the overarching goals of the entire project could contribute to a lot of different things. We're looking at an opportunity to enhance community assets that are underutilized, to use community synergies to accomplish more than we could accomplish individually, to create a place that is a source of excitement for Jackson, and to develop a multi-use community complex that's enjoyed by many people throughout our community every single day of the year. What are the potential components of this project? Well, we talked about a couple of the things that are being developed in Jackson right now. But a number of the things that will be parts of these projects include a children's playground, a catering kitchen, which we'll need for the event center, which the Y will need for its project, which if we can create a professional sports field, semi-professional sports field, they will need, and which if JC brings its culinary program to the Hayes Hotel and its redevelopment, would create the need for a kitchen. So we're also talking about a child care center, something that's very important to all of us. If you look at one of the things that would be involved in a sports complex would be a sports medicine and physical therapy clinic, an indoor sports complex, a golf practice and party place. You've seen these things, you've seen Top Golf in some of the bigger cities. Maybe we're talking in Jackson about something maybe just a little bit smaller, maybe call it Top Golf Junior. What about the opportunity to put a dome over a big part of what would be the redeveloped fairground, so it could be used all year round instead of just during nice weather? The need for locker rooms in a sports complex, and also we have the makings of an outdoor sports stadium in the grandstands that exist, but how can we continue to make that even better? Next thing I wrote down is a next generation flare grounds instead of fairgrounds. How can we create the most impressive, operationally functional, and successful and cool fairgrounds in the entire United States? I think we have that opportunity here. Also working with consumers to create smart energy within the complex itself. You know, if you look at this, how do we make something that has a grand entrance that says something about our community that any of these projects individually, without cooperating with each other as a total, wouldn't have the opportunity to do? You know, creating a convention and event center like you've already started to work on. You know, what about an outdoor concert venue? Again, we have that opportunity with the grandstands as they exist, but continuing to enhance that. What about a downtown club? How many of you remember the club that was at the top of the building next door many years ago? And what about having another opportunity for something like that? And then American One is one of the major components of this, wants to have the ability to continue to do their auto, boat, and RV shows. So far, looking at how do we take these projects that are independent of each other and bringing them together, what do you think so far? Is that something that you think you'd be interested in seeing be brought to our community? Let me give you an example of what synergy means. I talked about the need for a catering kitchen. Well, American One will need one, the Y will need one, the culinary program would need one, and the sports complex food service would need one. And conceptually, let's say a catering kitchen costs $1, right? Well, each of these individual entities will have to spend $1 to build their catering kitchen. If we build a multi-use catering kitchen that meets the needs of all four entities, it might cost a little bit more. It might have to have some things that one would have that another might not. But that multi-use catering kitchen would cost $1.50. We have $2.50 left over that we can do things that we would not be able to do if people didn't work together. How would we pay for, a spectacular playground? How would we pay for a dome to put over the complex in the winter so that we could use it throughout the entire year? How could we pay for the other things? When these independent projects work together, there's a way to collaborate that creates more than any one entity could realize by itself. Who are the current partners in collaboration and cooperation? Well, you can see some of them here. The county, American One, the city, the Y, Jackson College, the Anchor Initiative, the Community Foundation, Consumers Energy, the Chamber. That's just the beginning of the people that could be a part of this project. Patty Poppe, CEO at Consumers, recently said that communities that work together, government, private and public entities, that all work together in the best interests of the community are the ones that flourish. They're the ones that get the projects, and they are the ones that realize prosperity. And that's what we're trying to do here. Right now, there are financial commitments from entities outside that are willing to come together and work in the best interests of our community. Jackson College has provided an indication of interest to put $3 million into this project downtown in helping to create a next generation project where the current fairgrounds sit. The city of Jackson has committed to working carefully with the other providers in terms of providing for infrastructure and all of the components that would help to be a part of the project. The Community Foundation has come forward and put up to $1 million available to the project as well. A private investor has put up the opportunity to invest $1 million, and the Chamber has also put money into this. So we're looking at over $5 million of additional investment just in looking at how people could work together. And if you look at all of the other entities, on the right-hand side of this slide that could become a part of this, I think that we have just a really significant opportunity to do something very unique, very exciting. Any questions at this point? Do you see where we're trying to go?
Commissioner Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the stakeholders are concerned, you've laid out comments in regards to Jackson College, City of Jackson, so on and so forth. That's on page 8 there. I won't go through them all. And so it's important to listen to people's words, specifically individual words. I've heard nothing in terms of anything completely concrete as far as stakeholders providing any kind of financial investment. I've heard nothing from you. I've heard the word interest, opportunity, things of that nature. That does not tell me, as a county commissioner, that you are you're standing there saying that these potential stakeholders are going to provide potentially up to $5 million. I would suspect that's because you don't have a concrete, financial numbers from them. Would I be correct?
Well, what we do have is we do have signed indications of interest. So from the college, $3 million, from Community Foundation, $1 million. And so the things that you see on page 8, those numbers, we do have signed indications of interest, so yes, we do. But I think that's where, as people sit and work together, we can continue to move this forward and find out what are other opportunities that you saw that we put out on the right-hand side of the page. So.
Okay, I appreciate it. Again, though, you really didn't answer my question. You still said interest, and we as commissioners obviously have heard a lot of interest over a long period of time, and that's where it was, interest. But again, I appreciate your presentation. That's not the point. I was just making a point.
Carl, I'll be happy to give you copies of the indications of interest. I gave copies of it to Mr. Shotwell and to Mr. Overton as well, so, but absolutely, that's critical. You
Again,
have to,
interest is not a concrete confirmation, so thank you.
okay?
Any other questions? Commissioner Elwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dury, thank you for bringing this presentation to us tonight. I've got a number of questions, and I think the first is, we've heard some time about a potential baseball team coming here and potentially building a stadium for it, and that sounds kind of like what this may be steering it towards. I've heard talk of a feasibility study that was done that does not or would not support a baseball team in our community. Is that accurate, if you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know of that study, no.
And there's conversation, or at least in the documents here, about potentially the Y using that location or using that for their new location. Has the Y come out and supported that endeavor, and has the city also supported that move? And are there any obstacles in the way to doing that with the current plan that they have, if you know?
Sure. I've met with Matt and Rick Wilson, Rick Walton, Shauna. We have talked about it. Right now, the Y is talking with their major donors to make sure that they have voiced significant interest in being a part of the project where the current fairgrounds is. They want to make sure that their current donors are good with the idea of moving it from where it is or where it's planned to be to, a couple of blocks north. I have a meeting with the board, current donors, and some other people who are a part of the Y project the evening of May 24th to present this. So all the indications that I've been given from board members and from Sean are that they are excited about potentially looking at being a part of this project. With regard to your question on the city, yes, Patrick Birch has looked at this. He has talked about the fact that there was, a good chunk of money put into looking at studies for moving the Y from where it is across the street, but at the same time has said that if it makes better sense for it to be down where the current fairgrounds is, by all means do that, and he's already started to talk about some other things that the current Y property would be able to be used for. So both from the Y and from the city, we've been given very positive signs of wanting to be a part of this project. Patrick will be here tonight, if not for being in, I believe he said Minnesota, at a meeting that he had already committed to.
Okay, and then lastly, a question I think more for Mike than anybody else. Mike, I've sat through presentations on our current plan with the convention center and specifically where it would sit on the property. And you have a much larger base of knowledge on these elements that Mr. Deary's talking about, but do you see anything in our plan that would prohibit potentially doing this in the future, these things that he's talking about, if we move forward with our current plan?
No, where we wish to locate the existing American One Convention Center as planned would not preclude a potential sports stadium and additional building over what I'll roughly say the first baseline.
Sure.
There. I think the only loss there is some of the potential synergy. I would think there would still be a whole lot of other individuals, if they're so inclined, to be a part of a future project. I don't think our existing project precludes a project going forward in the future.
Okay, then just a couple of last things for me. I think the biggest priority for the public is roads, and we have done a lot of bonding. I know that we've got a great bond rating. I am always apprehensive or skeptical when we look at bonds. I think that would be a necessity if we were to move forward in this direction, bonding, and I'm not necessarily willing to do that. I'll lastly say two more things. Again, thank you for bringing this to us, and I also appreciate greatly American One's offer to us that we've taken them up on the convention center, and I appreciate that greatly. Thank you.
Commissioner Duckham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, are you aware we only have 40 acres down there?
I am.
Okay. I'm really concerned here. A lot of possibilities. Where are we going to put the fair?
Sure.
No, where are we going to fit the fair?
That's the nice thing about this, is that when we sit down and design this, okay, everybody, all the people that are a part of the project in their individual components sits and works together to really create what we'd like to see is the best fairground in the United States. Now, where does it go? That's where we have to sit and say, where do all the other pieces fit? How do they fit together? And so that's where we have to have some expert spatialization planning technology to help us with that. Where does it go? Well, when we figure out what everything that is there is a part of it, that's how we figure out how everything plays out and where everything sits. I think, we talked about, when we talked with Sarah, talked about how can we do something that's different and unique and really create a place that is spectacular. So, and the fair is critically important. Fair is critically important. And we'll talk about that in just a slide or two, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm on the fair board, and I sat through all the fair planning, and it appears we're going to be parking cars, instead of in the infield, we're going to be parking them on the asphalt around by the event center. Okay, we put a ballpark in there with a dome, other buildings, lockers. We leave the animal buildings there for the livestock. The fair's got to be squeezed into the infield.
That's a great question, and we talked about that. Mike and Steve pulled out a map. There's some other parking on the other side of, is it not Blackstone? Yeah, Blackstone. The other thing you can think about is that in meeting with Tim from the Enterprise Group, the Enterprise Group owns about half of the land inside what are the current prison walls. The other half of land is owned by the developer, who is interested in selling it. He's realized he's not going to be able to develop it. So what if you had a wonderful bridge going across the Grand River, over the top of the tracks, and you were able to park behind, over in the, what would be effectively that big piece of land inside of the prison walls. And we've looked at, that would handle approximately 700 cars. So that way you don't have to have land committed in that current 40 acres committed to parking, and you could use it for all the other kinds of projects. So exactly.
Well, I don't know how many cars we park in the infield, but when I assist people, the elderly or the handicapped, from getting to the parking area to the fairgrounds itself, there's been times where the infield is full. We have to start parking people outside. We already park on Blackstone. I'm just not seeing everything fit. I'm skeptical.
Well, and I appreciate your skepticism. I think the idea is, can we get everyone to sit down and find, that's one question. There will be dozens and dozens of questions that we have to sit down and figure out how to work through. The other part, though, that's exciting is, what are all the things that people would like to see? We sit down in these initial sessions and we say, what would you like to see? Mr. Shotwell talked about, coming back and talking, or having a place for the Men's and Women's Garden Club and the Master Gardening Club to really bring the roses, which we are the Rose City, bring that back downtown, and how do we do that? So, skepticism's important. I think the thing that we really have to do is that will not be the only challenge we have to face. But the opportunities, I think, far outweigh the challenges, but we have to make sure, like you said, handicapped, that will be a key component of making sure that this is accessible, for everything from baseball to weddings to obviously one of the most important thing that happens there, which is the fair.
Why don't we build this out to the Cascades? I'm being facetious, okay? Because the fairgrounds is one of our county parks. I just cannot see giving away a county park to this kind of development. We got citizens in this county that should have a say-so, not just...
I absolutely agree.
Thank you.
I am eager to bring to you something that will get you excited, talking to Dr. Tompkins. How am I going to get the people in Rives Junction excited about this, about bringing them downtown and making them feel that they have a place that they can enjoy and use? And so to that end, I am very eager to show you something that's going to impress you and get you very excited, all of you. I think, kind of summing up here, what are the benefits to Jackson County? I think this is we talked about the perfect moment in time. I think this is a time for you as Jackson County leaders to find that you really are in an extraordinary position to lead, to inspire, to exceed expectations, and to create a complex that is going to serve generations to come. And if you look at the benefits to the county, you can lead intergovernmental cooperation. You can redefine and change the perception of Jackson to the people that live here and the people that visit. You can create what we think might be one of the most significant community assets in over 50 years or more. You can ensure the sustainability of the fairground assets. If you have people using it every single day, that improves its financial performance, or the potential for its financial performance. Increase the number of people that are there every day. Establish the opportunity for improved quality of life, and also we talked about the fair. Preserve that 50-year tradition of 50-year tradition and the legacy. Not unlike the way consumers took the old post office and incorporated into their new building, and then celebrating the agricultural DNA of our community. So this is something that I think we're excited to talk to you about, and we'd love to have the opportunity to move forward with, cooperatively with all the stakeholders that we've listed, and with new stakeholders who may potentially be able to contribute to the project.
Any further questions?
Well, I'll just wait till he's done with his presentation and comments.
Okay. The last piece is really more operational. What would it look like if we were to move forward? You can see here's a brief chart of what would happen and when, and how would we get to where we are trying to go. So in terms of what would the first couple of steps be, you can see that right here. So that's my presentation, Sarah.
I think Phil had a question within the...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, then we'll go with Sarah first, then you, then Dr. Tompkins.
Well, mine's just really a point of clarification. As Fair Board Chair, I sat through all the master planning, all the stakeholder meetings with Denise, numerous hours, numerous months, numerous weeks. And just to refresh your memory, in our current master plan, we actually have current plans to move the Midway, and we've been in discussions with our Midway company for 2 years now to move them to the infield. Because as part of this whole process with this event, convention center, the track is coming out because obviously we know through state funding and state rules, harness racing is not coming back. Whether we like it or not, it's not coming back to Jackson County. And since then, obviously, the other ones have closed. Sorry, I have laryngitis, so it's kind of hard to talk. But anyways, I get this. It's exciting. It's exciting to hear. But with the one project, I guess I don't see the harm in keeping that moving and partnering with these other complexities is what I'm going to call it, because there's so many moving parts to it, and it's exciting for the community. I agree with you. It's exciting that all the stakeholders can actually talk to one another. But to, Commissioner Rice's point as well, we have to be cognizant of how we're spending these dollars and financing projects like this, and I love, the community collaborations. I guess one of the major things I would like to see going forward is I would like to see an account maybe set up with earnest money in it, sitting there ready to go. And figuring out a way, because in the research I've done since I've spoken with you in the last week was a lot of partnerships like this were built with, county governments, municipalities, other cities, stuff like that. But their contribution, the actual county contribution, was very insignificant to the whole project. And that's that's, in this project, from just early conversations, I'm open to conversations at this point, but in early conversations, that's the most concerning part to me, is having the county finance the majority of this over such a long period of time, when the research that I've done so far, and on just one teeny tiny piece, okay, that I want to preface it with that, just one teeny tiny piece of it, the research shows that the longevity isn't there for that type of venue to warrant a 30-year bond. That's just where I'm at this point.
And the idea is that the county doesn't spend any more than they would have already spent, because all these different entities are building what they plan to build with the money they bring forward. I think the A, B, C, and D pieces of the master plan add up to about $22.5 million, is that right? $25 million? So hopefully, if you even spent all of that, you'd have a project that is significantly greater that you didn't pay for. So that's what we're trying to do. These pieces that we're talking about, the county doesn't pay for them. They're already going to be paid for as if they'd have been built independently anyway. So to the person that talked about bonding, Mr. Ello, is that you? Yeah, well, then we don't do that. We use the money that these people are bringing forward to build their projects, but we do it in the same place and we get more for the same amount.
Can I interject a question here, Sarah, if you're done, or? So, Mr. Deary, one of those, I don't have the page here, but Jackson College was one of them, and I think you showed them with a $3 million investment.
Correct.
Is that an actual upfront amount that they're willing to give, or is that like $300,000 for 10 years?
It was $300,000 for 10 years, yes.
And is it perceived by them more as rent, or is it actual part of the facility? Or is there not a difference?
I have it in my book, and I can do that, or I can answer it later and send an email to Mike.
Later's fine.
I'll send an email to Mike, and you have copies of it, so yeah, I'll get that answer for you, absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. Tompkins.
What I'm concerned with, William, is the fact of what is it going to cost the county, okay? I went to my 3 townships meetings last night, traveling all across the back roads, and people were asking, well, why are we spending money on this when we need to be fixing the roads, okay? And also, why are you continually passing millages when it's getting harder to pay the mortgage, and so on? And none of my communities really said that they would use a facility like that. So the bottom line was that they don't mind it being built if it's built with private funds, but they don't want to have their taxes raised or millages put on them or bonds, okay, in order to do it. They support it if you can get enough private investors to get in there and do it, then fine, okay, but as long as it didn't cost the people out in the farmland, okay, more money.
Well, then one of the non-negotiables will be that this will not cost more than the 25, the county won't have more than its original budget from the 2016 master plan invested in the project, and that the rest of the funds have to come from outside and not put any greater burden on the county. Absolutely. But Dr. Tompkins, we have to build something that, like you said last night, the people in Rives Junction want to be a part of and want to come to. And that's the opportunity that we have.
Did you want to say something, Jonathan? I will. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I like it, and I'm going to tell you why. I mean, one, it's obviously it's in the district, but two, the point I think that Mr. Deary is making is that this is an opportunity, and if there's interest from a number of these different groups, including the Chamber, including the Anchor Initiative, including Consumers Energy, and conversations have taken place. And again, I know it's just simply interest, but if we have all these organizations and all the individuals that they represent and all the synergy that they represent who are coming to the table to talk about it, I don't think we want to necessarily stymie this opportunity at this particular time. At the same time, I also recognize that we're moving ahead on plans of something that does fit a vision that has been vetted. We do have the dollars for. And again, when it comes to the county footing some of the bill, let's not kid ourselves. We're already putting forth a bond to support this, the fairground renovations that we have in place. So I don't think we necessarily have a moral high ground to say that we don't want the county paying for any of the things that are going down to the fairgrounds, because we're already working our way towards that. So I for one, am willing to listen, and I think if there's a way that we can take our current plans and integrate them into what's coming next, I think that this is the perfect time to do that. So I'll be interested to see really where American One is on this. Obviously, it's the $4 million that they've not just pledged, but have really committed, that allows us to move forward with our current vision. They hold a large stake in where we go forward, and so if American One is interested in us doing this, I think we certainly have to listen to that as well. So I appreciate you coming down and giving the presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Deering, so you said there's not been a feasibility study done yet?
No, the question on the ball field, I've seen the ball field financial pro forma, both in terms of its startup costs and its operational over time. I've seen those pro formas. I think the question was, did I see a feasibility study that said that the semi-pro baseball team would not work? And I said, no, I hadn't seen that. I've actually seen a number of studies that show how semi-pro ball teams do work. So no, I hadn't. The question, I believe, was, had I seen a feasibility study that said it wouldn't? I haven't. I have seen the venture capital and the operational pro formas that show how it works, how many people, how many tickets you have to sell, and what the operational budget is. So I've seen that, and that does look solid.
Are you planning on a feasibility study for this project?
I would sure hope so. It's part of this plan, but before we get to that, we have to pretty much get everybody in the room working on where are we trying to go, how are we going to get there. Once we know what everyone wants to do, that is exactly the next step.
So is this project dependent on us not doing the current fair project that we're intending to do?
No, it's the whole idea is just slow down a little bit and see what can happen if everybody works together, if we just slow down a little bit and get everybody in the room working.
It sounds like it is dependent on us not moving forward with the current project.
The American One Event Center would be a critical component of this. No, it's a critical component of it in terms of...
My question is this project that you are proposing to us, is it dependent on us stopping what we already have in motion right now with the current center that we're working on?
It would probably be prudent to slow down a little bit, but no, not canceling it or terminating it, absolutely not.
Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No disrespect, intended, but it looks to me like you're a little overly optimistic on some of your numbers. As the Jackson College $3 million gift, yes, they're going to give $3 million, it'll be over 10 years. I might submit to you that that's $300,000 a year. That's probably going to be about the cost and maintenance and upkeep of the sports facility that they want down here. So it really isn't a gift towards building it. They're just going to pay us to use it for 10 years. And then after that, they get to use it free because they only committed $3 million, which is $300,000 a year. That's what I've heard is in their offer, or their interest. If that's the case, it really isn't a gift. They're just prepaying us for use of a facility. Because we can't use that we got to maintain this.
Sure.
Okay, and to their expectations, which in college sports are going to be quite high. I'm kind of probably considered somewhat conservative as a county commissioner, and I have real struggles with government and private enterprise crossing sabers, if you will. I struggle with the event center. It's going to be an event center, a catering service, a convention center. That's what private should do. This is what government should do in my book, okay? And when we take this, I'm sure there's going to be a follow-up where we're going to have to sell bonds to build the sports stadium, especially if we go with a dome. We're going to have to sell bonds to finish that. It's just reality, okay? And I just don't see spending the public money, the taxpayers' money, which is scarce, on a project that private enterprise should be doing for themselves. To me, you're kind of, and like I say, no disrespect, but you're kind of asking us to give away a county park to do all this, and it sounds good and exciting, but nothing's ever as good as it seems. Nothing's ever as bad. I just can't see the county selling bonds and having the taxpayers pay this stuff back to build something that really private enterprise should be doing. Private enterprise should be building the Y. That's what they should be doing. They've been here already. Private enterprise should be building a sports facility. I don't think I can support this.
Well, that's when we go back to what I said a few minutes ago, is that we'll have a non-negotiable that says the county will not put in more money than they have already committed to the project. The independent providers, whether it's philanthropy, private investors, or other businesses, they are going to have to come forward and work on this. But the thing that's unique about it is by those entities spending the same amount of money that they would have spent anyway, you'll see a project that's geometrically better than the arithmetic average of what was spent. But you're right. If you spend what you plan to spend and you get 3 times as much for it as you planned, I think you've done pretty well. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
I respectably don't think it's large enough for all of your visions. The city was already considering chipping in this money in the form of helping us with the underground utilities. So that's really not any new money. Like I say, the Jackson County College money, that's $300,000 a year. If we don't take that $300,000 a year and put it towards upkeep and maintenance of their facility to their standards, and we count it towards building of the project, that means we're asking the public to support the upkeep and maintenance of the Jackson County sports facility.
I am so much looking forward to getting you excited about this and showing you how it'll work and earning the opportunity to have you to vote to support it.
Okay, well, right now, we don't have that.
Commissioner Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of the commissioners have already stated this. Commissioner Williams is correct. Taxpayers already have an investment in the fairgrounds. And so there's already public money, millions of dollars actually. And there's also private money already, millions of dollars from American One. So we all, right there, we have a dual relationship, public and private. The YMCA, from what I understand, has done very well with donations, and I applaud them for that. And those are private donations. And from my perspective, we certainly have to listen to the people involved when it comes to the event center. It's a project that's been before us, and it's something that we discussed many times over. We voted on it, etc. As far as what you're presenting here, I don't think anybody dislikes the idea. I think it's a great idea. A multi-facet type facility would be awesome. Baseball, I love it. If you talk to people in the public, I'm not sure of a feasibility study, but you talk to people in the public, they love the idea of a baseball in Jackson County. But we definitely have to have a strong business plan that is backed by private entities' dollars to show us, like I said earlier, that there's a concrete amount of money that's private money that could make this happen. And again, at this point, we don't have that, obviously. But I do, again, thank you very much for your presentation. Very good presentation. Thank you.
Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with, well, one thing I'll say that Commissioner Duckham has said, that you're an optimist. I like that, and I think it's taken you great places probably. But for me, it boils down to the fact that we're a long ways into our plan with our current center. We fortunately have positioned it in such a place on the property that not only would it not prevent moving forward on what you're talking about, it's looking like entirely possible to me. I've seen an overlay of a ball field in that area, and I think it's clearly can be put there even though our convention center is where it is. I personally would greatly welcome continued discussions. I think we still need to move forward with ours, and I think bring what you got. I'd like to see commitments from people besides just conversations about, they're supporting it and what they'll bring financially. I'll certainly be willing to entertain those, but it doesn't negate the fact that we're far into our plan. Your plans, from what I can see, will fit on what remains there if we choose to do that, and I think that's a great combination. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Sarah?
I agree with Dave as far as, moving forward with the current plan. And a lot of that is we already have money invested, like we have contracts that are in place. We're on the hook right now for probably close to $500,000. Close? Yeah, right now already, because everything is already in motion for the event center itself. I think that the sports complex is great. Everything else with it is exciting. I mean, I don't know how any of us can sit here and say it's not, quite frankly. And as far as overlays and stuff like that, yes, in the master plan, it's meant to be a document that is just kind of a baseline. It's meant to have changes over the next 20 years. It's meant to be a 20-year plan, but it has lots of flexibility in it. When we did do it, we did commit to a couple of different standards, and a sports complex was part of that. Like I said before, our intention is to take out the track anyway, so it's gonna open up some space there, and I don't think a project like this is going to hinder the fair itself. And let's be real, I mean, this is a county park that we want to utilize more often. It's great. We have the event center right now, currently rented out pretty much every single weekend, right, Denise? I mean, every single weekend there is something going on there. It's just, it's not always known because it's a public, or it might be a private event. But ultimately, as far as the project itself, I guess I feel like what I'm hearing right now is if we continue forward, people are going to pull up their stakes and move out. And I want to know that that's not true. As far as the current just event center project.
I don't understand your question.
Well, we had conversations before, and Daniel was kind of alluding to it as well, with basically if we don't slow down, is the synergy going to be gone? Do you feel that if we continue with just that one little portion of it, but keep our mind open to other parts of it, but if we don't slow that one portion down, are we going to be exempt from doing any of this fun, exciting?
I think the one big piece is how do we make things better for that project by utilizing the synergies of the other projects if the other projects don't exist or haven't already figured out what they're... I don't know how you do one thing independently of a number of other things and still realize the same synergies. So I don't quite know how that would work.
Well, the only reason I'm saying this is because a lot of this is built around your sports complex and sports themselves, and the why issue or component. And to me, the sports complex and the why component is a whole big exciting project in itself, but I don't think that by us continuing forward with a convention center, it's gonna mess up that project. I understand the kitchen piece of it, but, I mean, as far as layout goes and with our master plan and the current size of what has been demanded, I guess, for this project, I think it's a better fit to keep the event center. I mean, it's all still in the same 40 acres, but just across the way. You know what I mean? To have the complex here and your event center here, to have it all in one, I think is the complexity of that. And it's just one of those things I don't understand. I can't picture it. I can't fathom it. I'm not an entrepreneur like you are, you know, that has these grand visions to do these things. I come from Springport. It's a teeny tiny little town. We have less than 1,000 people in our school. You know what I mean? It's a farming community, but I'm excited about having further conversations. I just don't want to be held down and precluded from continuing forward with our current
Thank you, Sarah.
little part.
Any other commissioners? Doctor?
William, do you have any idea what population size or base is needed to support a baseball team?
I've got a number of the studies that were created by Command and Curve. Bob, you were a part of that project more than I was, so you can probably handle that specifically.
My name's Bob Michaels. I live in Liberty Township. I'm retired. But before I retired, I worked with the Experience Jackson, which is the Visitor and Convention Bureau. They did fund $35,000 feasibility study for baseball in Jackson County. A number of the teams in the league are from towns similar in size to Jackson. The the feasibility study clearly indicated that it would be successful in Jackson, Michigan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, William.
Okay, thank you.
Any further commissioner comments? Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion tonight. I'd like to make a motion that we reaffirm the county's commitment to the Fairgrounds Master Plan, the commitment to the American One Credit Union for their financial support, and to build the new American One Conference Center as planned.
Is there support for the motion? Support. I have a motion and support. Is there any comments?
I do have comments.
Leitner.
I have a question. Well, when you say the commitment to the county, because right now I just wanted that clarified, because our commitment isn't necessarily for the full 20 some odd million right now. Currently, we have committed only $4 million to this project. So I just want clarification, Phil, for the amount. Is that okay?
Does the administrator answer?
I can. Yeah, I think if I understood what Phil just said is that he's saying that he wants to make a motion to commit to the county master plan for the fairgrounds, our commitment, to honor our commitment to America One for their contribution of $4 million towards the America One Conference Center, and move forward with the existing project that as planned, as designed. And to be clear, the county has, we are moving to sell $4 million in bonds to assist with the existing project as planned. $2 million of those dollars go to that project, $2 other million go to track removal and infrastructure improvements at the fairgrounds, electrical, all kinds of storm drainage and other issues. And to be further clear, the county master plan, when that was priced out for the fairgrounds, fairgrounds master plan, was priced out at what, pardon? Yeah, when it was priced out at, $25 million, that wasn't a commitment of the county to spend $25 million on a master plan. That is our master plan. It says if we did what we proposed in this plan, it would cost us $25 million. Not that we would spend $25 million, because obviously it's the plan over the next 20 years, and ideally there are some collaborations and synergies and things like that that would, reduce the cost to the county is the idea. But if I heard Phil correctly, he's supportive of
Moving forward.
moving forward with the existing plan, supportive of American One, and whatever that third piece was. You could read the motion again, I suppose.
The motion reads, to affirm the county's commitment to the Fairgrounds Master Plan to the American One Credit Union for their financial support and to build the new American One Conference Center as planned. That's the motion that was supported. Any further commissioner questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
And again, I want to make sure that, and this is to the point of Mr. Derry, where American One Federal Credit Union is. I mean, if American One Federal Credit Union says, you know what, we like this idea, we want you to slow down, then my assumption is this motion would be moot. But I'm supportive of where American One Federal Credit Union goes. Ultimately, we're reliant upon their money.
Jonathan has with all of our plans, and the commitment and non-commitment and commitment and non-commitment toward things, when it actually comes down to it, we're here with American One, and we have a contract, correct? A memo of understanding, excuse me. We have an MOU, and at the time, we had attorneys negotiating with them until we asked to slow down, and we did slow down for the 60 days like we were asked. And this is at this point right now. When you look at the Fair Master Plan, it's broken down into phases. And where the conference center is, it has no position on the baseball. Does it provide a building? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on, at the end of the day, what you want the baseball stadium to look like and the direction of it. If we build the polo fields, then no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to have the big turn and everything that you've got around it. So it depends on what's decided on by the community going forward with the master plan within the fairground. Just like the master plan at the Cascades. We'd love to spend all the money that we figured out on how to dredge the lagoons and everything, but we're not able to get there. So it sets and it waits for us to find the dollars to be able to do it and work in that direction. That's our goal, is to continue working in the direction of these plans and enhance the plans as we can going forward. And then if we have to, sit down and revisit them and redo them. Yes, sir. Commissioner Elwell?
I was just going to reinforce what you've said, that the Fair Master Plan is what we need to fix, change, and improve there as we get a chance and as money becomes available. And obviously, we don't have $25 million available. The memo of understanding we have with American One was based on their commitment to us and their great contribution for the community, and based on that memo of understanding, we've made a fairly significant investment of hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. I don't see anything here to stop us from moving forward with the plan that we put together and they approved of. And again, we have a memo of understanding on it, so I strongly support the motion of Commissioner Duckham.
Any other commissioners? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Motion passed unanimously. We've now arrived at public comment. It's the second round for public comment. Guidelines are the same as before, but you have 2 minutes at this time to address the board.
Mike Raskowski, Pleasant Lake. Just to finish up what I was saying, I was thinking too, why is Rand doing this? I mean, you guys throwing everything at him and what have you. So, I don't know what his strategy is. Maybe he's trying to make some money on his pension or something. I don't know. Or maybe he's one of the ones standing up. See, I was here a month ago, and I took really offense to this. I don't see any of you writing a resolution for it, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mahoney, I took real offense to your comments. Because you did imply very strong, no, you were explicit. And I expect an apology as a citizen of this county, but none of you county people, it was on county time, which you claim Rand was on, and none of you wrote a resolution, even in reprimand, on a citizen. That's bigger than the county working force. And I take real offense, Mr. Mahoney, because every time somebody disagrees, like on the NDO, all of a sudden we're homophobe. Because we came up with solutions. I said before that, hey, you know what? I don't condone what he said. I'm trying to move the ball forward. I'm not trying to divide like you do, Mr. Mahoney. And every time we disagree, and because I might support Trump or whatever, then all of a sudden I get discounted. And I'm getting tired of it. And when you use that word racism, I use it a very hierarchy, like Dr. King did. Where are you for people like me? I'm tired of being called a homophobe. I'm tired of being called a racist. I'm tired of this. I am none of those. I've tried to keep it in the condensed version of process and what have you. And I would expect an apology, and you guys do your job, because you know what? How about fairness? Because the population out there, you might not believe it, are getting a little tired of it. What's national is local. They see the double standards going on, and it comes all the way down to here. So just keep that in mind. Please, Mr. Mahoney. I'm trying to work.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
My name is J.C. and I'm from Summit Township. I'm looking at this list. Children's playground, catering, kitchens, childcare. Are we going to put other businesses out of business to have this all move down to the fairground? And I believe we've had a semi-pro football team that didn't make it. And I'm not really sure, but I think we had a semi-pro baseball team here at one time that didn't make it. And I don't know if anybody's really paying attention to the economy, but you better hold on, because it's not all that great. And I'm quite sure the taxpayers out here do not want to have to pick up the tab for somebody's grand dream of grand entrances and grand fairgrounds in the whole country. Come on, let's be reasonable. This is Jackson. We know that we're not supported in anything by any of the people here that you have. Take a look at the turnouts. You got 15, 20 people. Go to a softball game. You got 15, 20 people. This isn't going to go here. This isn't New York. This isn't some big metropolis. This is just a small little backward town that likes to pick on their sheriff. Okay? So let's not even contemplate something like this. If you do, maybe you can pull it out of your pockets, all of you who got your raises and stuff, and throw all your money in the kitty here, and then when this guy comes back and
30
says...
seconds, sir.
How much?
30 seconds.
Okay, when this guy comes back and wants everybody to jump on the bandwagon, he's going to make you so excited, stop and think about it. It ain't going to happen in this town. We're not big enough, we don't have enough people, and we can't get enough support. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Hi, Tony Bear, Sandstone Township. The fairgrounds transformation, this is the first I've had the opportunity to look at this stuff or hear this stuff. If you restore your fairgrounds, my way of thinking, you still have your fairgrounds. If you improve your fairgrounds, well, you still have your fairgrounds. If you transform them, I'm not sure you still have fairgrounds. So I don't understand all of that. I'll look into this more. The concept of a private businesses, like a baseball team, being built on public land, that's a park. That's land for all of us. How do we pick and choose which businesses we're going to let come in onto the public land and say, okay, you can use it like your own and build your own baseball stadium. You can run your private facilities and make your profit. How do we justify that on publicly owned land? That's something I need to think through further myself. I don't like the idea of public funding or publicly owned land going into competition against private businesses we already have in town. We have daycares. They provide their own land. They provide their own business, and they provide a good facility. They don't need our publicly owned lands to do that. So I've got several questions about this transformation
30
project.
seconds, Tony.
Okay, I'm just not totally comfortable with this fairgrounds transformation project. I'm afraid we won't have our fairgrounds anymore.
Any other public comment?
Del Anto. I'm confused. How do you mix public money with private money? How do you take public property and send it out to the highest bidder? I mean, could you do that same thing with this building? And I'm not being smart, I'm questioning how you intermingle public tax money with the private sector. I mean, I'd like to know, maybe I can do something at my farm, and I mean, it's just crazy. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Public comment's now closed. We have no closed session. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Leitner.
I know you're probably sick of me, but this is fun stuff. We just announced a new show for our fair, speaking of the fair. On Wednesday, August 8th, we're going to have Eddie Money with Night Ranger. So you can get your tickets to Paradise on Saturday. Anyways, so I just wanted to let everybody know you can get your tickets on etix.com. You can go to the fairgrounds. If you go to the fair office that morning, you can actually pick your seats. I'm just going to tell you that. So we're going to have that. So all of our shows have been announced. We have a Boots and Roots country show on Sunday. Monday we have Darcy Lynn Farmer, who's the little ventriloquist. On Tuesday we're going to have Theory of a Dead Man and Pop Evil. Wednesday will be Eddie Money and Night Ranger. And then we'll have a rodeo and demolition derby still.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Mahoney?
Just wanted to make a couple of comments right quick. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair. I guess I will start with saying, Sarah, happy late birthday. To all the mothers, happy late Mother's Day. To Phil or Carol, whoever it was down there, I love the ringtone. I'm gonna have to open my tablet up right quick and read this. I guess I'll start with giving the definition of forgiveness. Forgiving someone means to stop feeling anger toward them for something they did wrong. I'm not angry anymore. To the comments of me being a bigot or a racist, my grandmother's white. The next thing I want to say is, speaking to Dr. King, the biggest thing that I'll say about Dr. King is a quote that he made, which is, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. I'm going to just let everybody ponder on that. And then I just want to thank all of the commissioners for the service that we all give to the community, and everyone else who's a public servant. Julie, it's great to see you as always. This is not an easy job, but I enjoy doing it.
Any other commissioner comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn? Motion and support?
Support.
All in favor, please say aye.